Oda standing by with his guest. Wahiga?
Well, Vicky and Sam, good to see you on this morning shift. And if history is anything to go by, then in elections, some of the more interesting things could happen in hours like this. And I want to thank our viewers also who are burning the proverbial midnight lamp to keep it tuned here on Citizen TV as we bring election results to them straight to their houses and, of course, on their devices as well. And we're here in our tallying center where our well-trained teams continue to process those Form 34As. It is a grueling task. I've been observing some of them for the last 20 minutes or so as they get the forms, download them off the IEBC portal and manually key them into our systems, because an interesting thing happened this time around. The IEBC deciding not to go public with the tally of the presidential results, but just to update the public and give an update on how many Form 34As have been uploaded in their system. And we'll keep showing you some of those statistics even as we continue. But what that does now is that for observers, for civil society, and for media organizations like ourselves, we now need teams like this and a tallying center like this for them to manually download each one of those 46,229 Form 34As, key each of the votes of the presidential candidates into the system, and display some of the numbers that we are now showing you on our TV screen, and also on this interactive screen, which is linked to the Citizen digital app, which, by the way, I hope you've downloaded, because we have these results here as well. Let me give you a quick glance into what we have right now in terms of the latest results. Provisional results, bearing in mind the IEBC are the ones that will release the final results, and what we are showing you here is provisional. These are the forms that were captured on the KIMS kit and sent from the constituency and the polling stations to the National Tallying Center and then uploaded onto the public portal as well. But we also have our teams working on that. But what we have so far right now is this, in terms of how it's been broken down. Raila Odinga, 49.52% of the results that we have so far. Provisional results, 604,286 votes, while William Ruto, 48.83%, 595,865. And these numbers keep changing. And I'm sure when we come back here a bit later on, they'll have changed quite a bit. In the prisons, Raila Odinga, 312 votes, 66.10% of the votes, closely followed by William Ruto, 153, 32.41% votes. In Narok, it's William Ruto in the lead there, 54.11%. That's 11,563 votes. Raila Odinga, 9,673. And if you log on to the app, the Election 2022 section, you can get more of these statistics. Look at what's happening in Baringo, in Kitui, in Laikipia. We've broken it down for you like never before, and you can follow this even if you decide that you're not going to be near your TV screen. You can follow it on your phone as well, and we'll keep updating this for you real time throughout the course of this morning and into the better part of the day as well, until a winner is declared at the Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center, where the presidential returning officer Wafula Chebukati sits. But we also want to get some context into what makes this particular election different from what we saw in 2017, both the first election and the repeat election as well. And joining me for this is my guest, John Walubengo. He's an ICT lecturer. He's also a trustee at Kictanet. John, thanks for joining us at this let me not call it an ungodly hour. In an election, all hours are fair play. And we're going to keep rolling with this until we get a winner and a result from the IEBC. But thanks for finding time for us here today. And I want to immediately begin by referring to an article that you penned. This should have been sometime, and let me see, I actually had this open just here a couple of minutes ago. It's actually disappeared as, oh, there we go. There we go. August 2nd, 2022, you asked a question, will IEBC stream presidential results at Bomas? You had seen this already. Let's talk a bit about that and what you had expected to see, and is that what you're seeing right now at the Bomas of Kenya?
Yes, thanks for the invite. What is happening at Bomas of Kenya is precisely what I expected to see, in terms of them not actually giving us the running tallies the way they did in the previous two elections, 2013 and 2017. And the reason they had actually told whoever was listening that they wouldn't do this is because the Supreme Court in 2017 really gave them a hard time in terms of asking them what exactly are those text results vis-a-vis the Form 34As. because the law doesn't have provision for the text results. It only recognizes the Form 34A images, and more specifically the fact that the results on those images at the polling station is the final result. If that is the case, then the question becomes, what is the results in Bomas? Because Bomas is not a constituency.
And that's a question that was asked in the Supreme Court, and IEBC lawyers, I know, were under pressure to respond to that.
They struggled with that, and so I believe to avoid a repeat of the same, they decided to just say, okay, we're not going to deal with text results. We'll upload the images and perhaps bring partners like the media to do the breakdown and the tellings, pretty much like what you're doing here now.
Okay. And let me first talk to a frustration that some of the guests in a previous panel before we came on air were talking about. And they were wondering, why is the IEBC chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, being so guarded with information, bearing in mind if the decision at the constituency level is final, surely by now, and if I can just go to the portal, and I don't know if I need to, let me actually refresh it as we speak. But right now what we're seeing is in terms of reported Forms 34A, 84% of them have already been uploaded onto the IEBC portal. That's a whopping 38,836.
Yeah.
And one gets the sense that the IEBC could have a pretty good idea of the state of the race at the moment. And those guests, and we had Angela Mbitho from Infotrack, Professor Omenya, and Alex Awiti, were of the opinion that surely he has something to speak to, but the last press briefing he did not.
Yes, I have the advantage or the privilege of also serving as an observer with Tiktanet, Tech Observer, and I had a chance to visit the polling stations, check the software that is running, and I was a bit surprised that a critical part that was there in 2017 is not there. This is the results, the text results transmission. This is like previously in 2017, before you send the image, you actually key in the presidential results per candidate in numeric terms. So that's what we call the text results. And that is what used to go to Bomas, sort of sometimes before the forms arrive, because the forms tend to be heavy and sometimes the network is not good enough to send both the text and the form at the same time. But this year, they don't have the text option. They only have the forms option. So what this means for the commissioners at Bomas is that they're having to do what you're doing here. They're getting the forms and trying to extract the information.
So they have a tallying center.
Yes.
And depending on the capacity of their tallying center, it will determine how long Kenyans will have to wait.
Exactly.
For that final declaration.
Yeah. As opposed to in 2017 and before, if at the polling station, the presiding officer had typed in the numerics, those numerics will tally automatically.
Wasn't that the problem, though, in 2017? That some of those results that were typed in did not tally with the Form 34s that were finally brought to the National Tallying Center?
Yes and no.
Or was it prone to manipulation? What's your take?
The issue in 2017 with those text results was more legal than errors. Why do I say so? Because the software had sort of preliminary checks before the presiding officer hits submit. As soon as they type in, for example, the presidential candidate tallies, the 4 of them, the software could be able to sort of filter out errors. It could add and say, okay, the totals for each candidate cannot, for example, exceed 700, which is the limit per polling station. Or the totals cannot exceed spoiled votes. So the numerics of the text was really not the problem in 2017. The problem in 2017 was the legal definition of what exactly is a text result. And it is not provided for in law. So in order to avoid the lacuna in law, you simply don't send the text result.
And which is what IBC have done.
And that's what they've done.
One of the questions that you raised in that article that was uploaded actually just a couple of days ago, I made it sound like it was a long time ago, was you are worried that Kenyans would not be able, that under this new system and this format that IBC is relaying their data on, Kenyans would not be able to know which polling stations have not yet transmitted results. But I believe the portal now does kind of offer an idea of that. So I hope your fear has been allayed on that one? Because I've seen people, drilling into the system and confirming so-and-so voted here, and I did as well.
I also drilled in, and you go to the portal, you can see the Form 34A, and you can see it's coming from a particular polling station. But you're doing that with a very, should I say, narrow perspective, because you're only looking at 1 out of 46,000, polling stations.
That's correct.
So at that point in time, if I ask you which one has not transmitted, it becomes a difficult question to answer, because now you'll have to have capacity to know which are the 46,000 polling stations minus the ones that have been submitted in order to deduce who has not submitted. And that requires some time. Previously, that will be also automated the same way the text results are automated. So there's a level of opaqueness within the transparency in terms of you have so many forms that you're not able to filter down to the critical issues of which polling station has not transmitted and why.
What's the alternative? What was happening in 2017 so that you did not have this fear or this concern?
The text results would come with the details of
You're taking us back to that.
Exactly. So my submission is that whereas the text results have a challenge legally, they actually served a transparency purpose that is now
that you feel is now lacking.
Exactly.
Now, because the Constitution mandates the IBC to carry out an election with 6 factors in mind as per Article 86, and transparency is one of them, but secure and accountable are 2 other very important components of an election. From an ICT perspective, with an election like this that's very heavily reliant on technology, what does a secure and accountable and transparent election look like?
Again, I'm sorry to go back to 2017. I know it was nullified, but the nullification created IBC. It gave a chilling effect to IBC that they seem to walk away from technology. But technology is critical because it enhances transparency. We've seen today the issues of manual registers. That's another issue right there, because if you don't identify voters with their biometrics and you create an opportunity for them to be identified purely on a national ID, what does that mean? It means that when polls close, somebody can see out of 700 people, 500 showed up, so there's a balance of 200 who didn't show up. And if there's an opportunity to identify them manually, because I don't need fingers, why not? So technology comes in to sort of close those gaps. And that example is on identification. The other example is on results transmission. And if we are able to identify immediately which polling stations have not sent, it's now going to 2 a.m. Why haven't they sent? I mean, to count 700 votes will take you an hour. So,
well, I mean, we know that there were about 1,111 polling stations that did not have 3G, 4G access, so maybe the PO is now trying to find the nearest
no, they had satellites. And IBC confirmed that they had gazetted those polling stations that don't have 3G, 4G, and they had budgeted for, satellite internet. So technically, everybody should have transmitted the forms as we speak now.
So you are concerned that everyone has not, and this is
Yes.
another maybe 10,000 or so. My last question to you, I know you have observer duties at Bomas. I was going to say tomorrow, it's actually today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question that's been coming up on voter apathy, especially related to young people. And
Yeah.
one of our guests earlier today said it's time for Kenya to explore mobile voting or e-voting. Again, from a tech perspective, how feasible, how realistic is a proposal like that?
The youths are in a different space. You know, they're on TikTok, they're in Facebook. They're not where we traditionally, the old folks are. So the way to get them onto the, you know, voting habit is to get them where they are. And so if you could simplify voting so that we vote on our mobile phones, you probably will get more of them participating. And we always talk about we trust Safaricom with our money. Why can't we create a similar app for voting? It is technically possible, but it requires sort of a higher level of security than what we have at the moment. But the technology is there. I know Chebukati keeps talking about something called blockchain. Yeah, there's a blockchain technology that is able to fit into the constitutional requirement of transparency, security, and others that you will find in our current election mode as you move into the technical mode. So it's something that perhaps in 2027 we should adopt.
That soon? Okay, you're very optimistic, John Walubengo, but I guess that's the space you're in, where change could happen very quickly. Thank you very much for your time and for your thoughts. All the best at the Bomas of Kenya. I'm actually sure we'll be meeting there later on today, which actually sounds quite interesting to say. John Walubengo there is an ICT lecturer and a trustee at Kicternet, and you know, ICT and tech is what he writes about quite a bit. And he had very interesting thoughts on this election, some of which we've actually seen come true, even as we observe the election today. This is the Tallying Center here at the Royal Media Services, where a lot of work is happening right behind me, and I'll be coming back later on here, or you'll be coming back to me later on here to get updates on what's happening right here. But for now, I know Sam Gituku has more numbers to crunch.